The year was 2024. The month was September. And a fellow good YouTuber by the name of Punky Stuff was about to launch his brand new fan-made Thomas and Friends character. Hey guys, it's TNF Disney G&E Fan 2009, aka the voice of Braxton from Tylerwear the Metrocar here. And this video is going to be very special. Today is the 5th of September, which marks the first anniversary for my friend Punky Stuff's fan-made Thomas series, Tylerwear the Metrocar, which is based on the Tylerwear Metro service, but in a Thomas and Friends styled show. So today, what we're going to do is, we're going to go back along the yellow line, just like Sprinty did in his song.
Sprinty the red bus rolls on fine, humming tunes down the yellow line.
To see how this Metrocar, his twin brother, and his bus friend, both owned by Go North East, came to live on the island of Sodor, with Thomas the Tank Engine, and all of his wonderful friends. And once again stepping away from the realism, just like Thomas and Friends. But at least it kinda works sort of in here, and not like in the official Thomas. I'm looking at you, all engines go. As well as the 1 year anniversary, Season 3 has just been released today. So we're gonna go over the first 2 seasons and the first episode of Series 3, just to go over the history of how it came around, and to look at behind the scenes, and I'm going to review every single episode and the shorts up to this point. So without further ado, all aboard everyone, as we take a look at the history of Tylerwear the Metrocar, beginning with production history. Production of the series began in August 2024. The trailer was dropped the exact same day I dropped the trailer for my Boris and Friends remake series. Since we've got Boris and Friends involved with this show too, I might as well go over my Boris and Friends remakes. They were made using the Trackmaster and Tomy Rangers, and most of the scenes were filmed around Lane Lane, particularly the park in the background, used for scenes on Boris's branch line. However, certain characters were made by specific rangers, such as Orwine and his 2 colleagues being made out of 3 Take-Along Elizabeths, or Alex the Tractor being made from an Ertl Terrence. Now, this is something you guys probably don't know. While this series and Tylerwear were in production, I got punched in the mouth. This happened at Walkergate Metro Station while I was making the Tylerwear Metro Next Stop announcements video, the mail announcements. I was actually going to make a Class 555 version of the video, but unfortunately I accidentally deleted the file, so it's been cancelled. Eventually, the Boris and Friends models would be used in Season 2 of Tylerwear the Metrocar. We'll get onto that a little bit later in the video. In the original trailer, the model of Tylerwear looked like this. Specifically, this model. This is a paper Tylerwear Metro Class 994, officially from Nexus. I'm assuming it came out in 2020 because on the roof this is clearly from the 40th anniversary. It says 1980 to 2020. This was only seen as Tylerwear's model in the trailer for the series, as well as the early Scoop the Seaside That Gets Grounded episodes. But we'll get to Scoop later on. My model here has been converted to have the Thomas and Friends Minis chassis underneath them. I specifically got two 2025 ones, Thomas and Flynn at the moment. Which is good because now I can have these guys run on the Trackmaster 2 tracks. On the 5th of September that very same year, the very first Tylerwear episode, Sprinty's Accident, premiered on YouTube. Tylerwear got another model, which was the exact same size, but as you noticed, it's in a different colour scheme. Tylerwear's original Season 1 model was very similar to the one that he had in the trailer. This is the model I was talking about. This is specifically Metrocar 4001, who would get his own special canon to the series, but not in exactly the exact same as how he appears here and how he appears in real life. If I put these guys side by side, you can see the one used in the trailer was slightly shorter than the final product we got in the real show. These aren't the original models, obviously. These were just my personal ones. I also did the Minis mod on 4001 as well, so that he can run on Trackmaster 2. Alongside Tylerwear are his two bus friends, Braxton and Sprinty. Their original models were paper cutouts of their bases, coloured in pencil to their respective liveries. Super Shuttle for Sprinty, obviously, and Sunderland District Berries for Braxton. Now that we have the three original characters introduced, like Edward, Gordon and Henry in the Railway series, let's get on to the next chapter, the characters. Since Tylerwear is the main character, we might as well start by talking about him. Tylerwear is based on Tylerwear Metrocar 4067, and he even shares the number with his bassist in the later seasons, and certain other promotional material, including the Season 1 trailer. In terms of his personality, Tylerwear is hardworking and really useful. He is best friends with Braxton, and the two gave each other their own names, as we see in the special How Tylerwear and Braxton Met. As for his voice, Tylerwear is voiced by Punky Stuff himself. But Tylerwear isn't the only Metrocar in the series, there's also Hugo, Tylerwear's twin brother. He is based on 4020, although he doesn't have the Jubilee symbol on him. Originally, he was planned to be based on 4066. However, this was cut due to the person who voices Hugo, Bus Boys Transport Channel, claiming 4020 was his favourite and requested the fleet change. So, Punky Stuff changed the fleet number. The small-scale Tylerwear and Hugo models had different faces. However, by the episode A Busy Day, from Series 1, they were both given the exact same model. Until Series 3, that is, but we'll get onto that when we talk about the seasons. Hugo has a similar personality to Tylerwear, although he doesn't get that much as screen time as Tylerwear, despite the fact they are both brothers, but Tylerwear has more of a personality than Hugo. Now we move on to my character, Braxton the Berries Opterversa. With Braxton's bases being an NK11 reg, specifically 8335, which was confirmed in How Tylerwear and Braxton Met, because we see Braxton in that shot in the Keylink Pride livery. Man, I miss these Berries Versas. Braxton has a very interesting personality. He's usually quite calm, he's a good friend to others, but he's not afraid to get angry and lose his temper at certain points. He can get really loud when he's angry too. Good examples of angry Braxton are Braxton's last run from Series 1 and the short In Danger, the latter of which is actually the most angry so far Braxton has actually been on the show. Scoop, you little!
You're not going anywhere, you cheats.
Sorry if my performance causes you to go deaf. Next up, it's Sprinty the Super Shuttle. As his nickname implies, he's based on one of Go Northeast's Super Shuttle X66 branded NK69 Reg Enviro 200 MMCs, specifically 5488. Sprinty, voiced by Buses Harvey, is the first character to get his own spotlight episode. That of course being Sprinty's accident. Tylerwear does appear in the episode, but he's not the main character, which is actually kind of strange. Sprinty is the best friend of Hugo as confirmed in Series 2. Even though his song depicts him as a very smooth driver, he's actually quite speedy in the first season. And I think this one line from the Metrocar's replacement says it all.
Super Shuttle coming through!
But wait, we've got some secondary characters exclusive for the show as well. The Blue Diesel, from the third episode of Season 1, is your typical school bully diesel engine. He's basically an Ertl Diesel 199 from the Railway series. He isn't exactly 199, he's just being used as a different character entirely. In his one episode, he comes across Tylerwear, Braxton and Sprinty and basically acts like D261. There's a random red bus, aka a Thomas Wooden Railway Bertie, which is being used as a non-version of Bertie, who crashes into Tylerwear in the following episode. He only appears one time as well. And don't worry, this isn't actually Bertie. Bertie might appear sometime later on down the line in Season 3. Both the Red Bus and the Diesel are voiced by Punky Stuff. Further down the road we have Harry and Jack, both voiced by Busboys Transport Channel. Both of them are based on the open-top variant of the Volvo B70L Plaxton President. Unlike Braxton and Sprinty, Harry and Jack are not Go Northeast bases. And then, there's the mean controller.
Oh, bother.
The mean controller, as his name suggests, is not a nice man. He basically only cares about money, and he doesn't care about any of the vehicles who serve his company. I mean, he doesn't care what's happening to poor Braxton, trying his best, but he isn't able to do it properly. And what does he do to Braxton? Well, I'll just let him say it.
Now, thanks to your silliness, I'm sending you away from the rest of the day, and I hope you'll enjoy being cut up in the smelter's yard.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Finally, there's Sam. He's a friendly diesel engine. He's based on a Class 37, specifically D6763, which unfortunately means, like Braxton, his basis is dead. The model used for him was the Hornby 37063. He doesn't have his face when he first appears in his first shot, because his face was digitally inked and painted. And also, despite only appearing in one episode, Sam is set to come back for Season 3. Let's hope we can expand Sam's personality, because I'm not really sure if he had one. I mean, he did support Tylerwear when he was feeling down, but other than that, he didn't really do much. But Punky Stuff does do a nice voice for him. There is of course non-Tylerwear the Metrocar originated characters, but we're going to get onto them in their respective seasons, beginning with Season 1. Okay, now it's time to review every single episode of the show. As we know, Season 1 came out last year on this very day, so we're going to start talking about that one. I'm going to be going in depth, reviewing each episode individually, as well as going about behind the scenes and expressing my opinions about it. We of course have to start with Sprinty's accident. The beginning of the episode we get an introduction scene of Tylerwear, Braxton and Sprinty. While travelling down the road, Sprinty needs to make sure he doesn't crash into a nearby fence. But he ends up skidding all over the road and crashes straight into the fence, which knocks over onto the tracks. Tylerwear almost crashes into him, but thankfully he stops just in time. But eventually the fence was fixed and everyone went back to work. This is actually a decent way to start the show, if I'm being honest. I'd personally give this episode a 7 out of 10. I would just like to point out one thing about the models of the respective characters in this episode. These models would only be used for the first 5 episodes of Series 1. We'll talk about the large-scale models when we get to the 6th episode. The next episode is Tylerwear's spark problem. Tylerwear is worried about his sparks, in case he accidentally electrocutes someone. His pantographs make very big sparks when he goes along the line. Spritty and Braxton reassured Tylerwear that the fences will stop his pantographs from electrocuting anyone. So later that day when Tylerwear is trundling down the line, one of his sparks goes BAM! But luckily it bounces right off the side of the fence. Now Tylerwear isn't afraid of his pantographs anymore. Whilst I can't understand Tylerwear being concerned about his sparks, I'm not 100% sure if it makes 100% sense or not. Because Braxton and Sprinty are much younger than Tylerwear, but at the same time the sparks can be dangerous, so he can kinda get an exception of that. For this being Tylerwear's first leading role, I'm gonna give this one a 6 out of 10. Next is episode 3, the diesel engine. Braxton sees a big blue engine passing by on the main line, so he and Sprinty decide to talk to Tylerwear. Tylerwear informs him that that is a diesel engine, and this diesel engine is not very nice. Later on that day, Braxton meets the diesel, who had some rather rude words to say to Braxton. Episode 8 spoilers.
What are you? Some sort of scrapped boss? You should go to the scrapyard once.
That line is clearly foreshadowing a later episode. Then the diesel bashes into the back of Tylerwear and is rude to him. Then the diesel comes across Sprinty and is rude to him, and then tries to recreate his crash. And so as a result, he's sent packing. The end. This episode is rather questionable, if I'm being honest. While I did enjoy the scene with Tylerwear and Braxton at the start, it doesn't really add that much to the story. And the way Tylerwear talks about diesel engines as a whole is racist.
That engine, that's a diesel engine. They run on oil. It might not sound clean, and do be careful, because diesels can be devious.
Where have I heard this line from?
Diesels can be devious.
Screw the nitrogen era. Anyways, I don't really have much to say on the diesel. He only appeared once and never again, and is basically this show's version of Class 40. This episode is getting a 3 out of 10. The main reasons are because, even though the Braxton and Tylerwear scene was pointless, I did enjoy it. And I'm so glad that that diesels can be devious line was retconned in later episodes. Next is episode 4, Level Crossings. Tylerwear is about to pass a level crossing, which doesn't have any boom gates. He asks Braxton what a level crossing is, with Braxton explaining that level crossings stop vehicles crossing the tracks and the boom gates go down. But then Tylerwear points out that the boom gates didn't come down on the crossing he was at because it didn't have any. Then Tylerwear comes across another level crossing in the same form, most likely on the green line. But at the same time, a red bus is coming straight towards him, and Tylerwear is just stopped in the middle of the tracks, in the middle of the road, most likely so the crash can happen. And now Tylerwear has to go for repairs. This episode was definitely better than the other one, but it still has questionable moments that don't make sense. For example, how does Tylerwear not know what a level crossing is? He is older than Braxton. This is my main flaw with the episode. The crash was okay, but it could have been better. Tylerwear literally stops in the middle of the road, and there's also a fence in the way, blocking the road and the track, so he had nowhere to go basically. This episode is getting a 4.5 out of 10. We are halfway through the season with episode 5, Tylerwear's brother. After the accident that Tylerwear had got into in the previous episode, Braxton and Sprinty are wondering who the new Metrocar will be to take over his regular service. Soon, Braxton and Sprinty meet the new Metrocar, Hugo. Hugo did a fantastic job taking over from Tylerwear while he was being repaired. He loved troubling down the line. Soon, Tylerwear is fixed and it is revealed to Braxton Sprinty that Tylerwear is the brother of Hugo. This episode was quite a good introductory story for Hugo. This is definitely the best episode from the season so far. Also, one fun fact of trivia, this is the only episode to have Hugo's original small scale model, because from the next episode onwards, the models will be upgraded. Speaking of that episode, let's move on to it. Episode 6, A Busy Day. One morning at the South Gosford depot, Hugo notices Tylerwear has graffiti on his side. So Hugo decides to do Tylerwear's work while he goes to have a washdown. On the way, he meets Braxton and tells him about the graffiti on Tylerwear. After telling Sprinty about all this, Braxton starts having problems of his own. His engine started breaking down, so he needed someone to come and rescue his passengers. Harry and Jack arrive and take Braxton's passengers. And then that night, everyone discusses the day at the depot. The end. This is the first episode to use the new large-scale models of the characters. The Braxton and Sprinty models are no longer in use. But on the positive side, the models are still around. Braxton here, this is the Season 1 Braxton prop. Now owned by me, given to me by Punky Stuff. And Buses with Harvey, the voice of Sprinty, now owns the Sprinty prop. I don't think I did a very good job of the voice of Braxton during the scene where his engine is breaking down. I don't know why. This is one of the 2 episodes to feature the 2 double-deckers, Harry and Jack. After the 7th episode, they were never seen again, and I have no idea why. And now it's been established that despite being from Go North East, Braxton and Sprinty live at the South Gosford depot with the Metrocars. That just confuses me. Overall, this episode is quite nice. 7.6 out of 10. Now we get to the most popular episode of Season 1, the Metrocar's replacement. The Tylerwear Metro service couldn't be operated, so the buses had to take over from their services. Braxton, Sprinty, Harry and Jack all agreed to do the services for the Tylerwear Metro trains. Even though the buses were doing a very good job, Braxton was getting very tired. His engine was wearing out, and he was feeling exhausted. Later that night, they discussed what had happened during the day. Even though the buses were tired, Tylerwear and Hugo were very grateful for their help. Wow, this might be the best episode from this season. This is the first appearance of the mean controller in the show.
Oh,
Bother.
But on the positive side, his true colours haven't been established yet. And also, Braxton mentions that buses have branch lines. This technically isn't true. And also a little bit of trivia, Harry isn't voiced by Busboy's Transport Channel in this episode. And his one line, being taken over by Buses with Harvey, references Buses with Harvey's Adventures of the Seasiders show.
I guess this is better than Scoop always being devious all the time.
And funny enough, some of the Seasiders would eventually appear in the show. Speaking of Scoop, he appears in the following episode. This episode tackles the realism and a real-life basis perfectly. It does have some issues, but in terms of like the proper realism, but at least I can make an exception to this being unrealistic, unlike Thomas. This episode is fantastic, and it's the best episode from Season 1. 10 out of 10. Episode 8, Braxton's Last Run. Braxton tells Tyler some really sad news. The mean controller's trying to push him out. Whilst travelling down the road, Braxton's engine gets a little bit heated and Braxton breaks down again. And then the mean controller comes and does one of the worst things to this character.
Braxton, I am very disappointed in you. You were supposed to take some passengers without any delays.
But sure, it's my old engine. And after this horrible scene, we get this really angry Braxton moment. Who the hell does he think he is? Later that day, Braxton starts to slip and skate all over the road, before eventually derailing, well, deroading? He isn't a train, so it can't be derailing. And then the main controller comes up to him and decides, that's it, you're gonna get withdrawn and scrapped. Then, Adventures of the Seasiders character, Scoop, makes his first appearance. He ends up laughing over the fact that Braxton is going to die. I mean, this was the period where Scoop was starting to turn evil. Whilst at the station, the others get to see Braxton being towed away to the scrap heap, with Tylerwear crying in the process. The end. For the first Braxton episode, this was brilliant. Braxton breaking down was inspired by what was going on with the Berries Optiverses at the time, as they were starting to get old and would eventually be withdrawn completely late 24, early 25. This is the episode that turned the main controller from the nice controller to the main controller, basically. Now he has a personality, which is not good. He's selfish and doesn't care about older vehicles. Can you really blame Braxton for getting mad? This is dangerous! Also, you know how Braxton was being sent for scrap in this episode? I was only just going back to editing this, and you know the blue diesel?
What are you? Some sort of scrapped boss? You should go to the scrapyard once.
I told you that episode was foreshadowing this. I like the fact that Scoop was forementioned in the previous episode, and now he's making his official appearance here. Despite him being an actual vehicle in real life, based on the ELX 400 version of the character, I'm actually kinda glad that he was in this. And Adventures of the Seasiders does get referenced in the next episode following this. This is also the first Tylerwear episode to have no narration. This episode deserves a 9 out of 10. Brilliant episode for Braxton. Episode 9, Tylerwear's Plan. Scoop is emotionally abusing Tylerwear after Braxton has been scrapped. Tylerwear has had enough of Scoop and really wants to see Braxton again. At Hewitt Station, he talks to a Class 37 diesel engine called Sam, who is not devious.
Diesels can be devious. Diesels can be devious.
Sam gives Tylerwear the idea to go to the island of Sodor, where he'll be preserved and work on the Northwestern Railway. So Tylerwear heads back to the depot to tell Sprinty and Hugo. And as for Braxton, he is brought to Sodor and was bought by the Fat Controller. The end. Now this episode was going to be foreshadowing an escape attempt. Tylerwear and Hugo were going to break out with Sprinty and head to Sodor. However, this plot was unfortunately left behind by the next episode. In the scrapyard, you can see two Tylerwear Metros. One of them is the Tylerwear/Hugo model, and the smaller one, I actually own the smaller model. And that yellow Enviro 200 MMC next to Braxton. Here are the two models to this day. They are not in the best shape, obviously. I mean, the tilting mechanism on this one isn't really the best. Here's the small Metro, which is the exact same template as Tylerwear and Hugo's template, but I think it's around, it might be around the same size as the model of Tylerwear in Scoop the Seasider Gets Grounded, the later seasons. While we have seen Thomas and Fred's merchandise in the show, the Fat Controller is the first character from the show to actually appear. I don't really have too much to say about this episode. 6.5 out of 10. Next is the final episode of Series 1, Escaping, the only episode filmed in 2025. The main controller has bought the brand new Class 555s to replace the original Metrocars, meaning Tylerwear and Hugo are now withdrawn. Their bases are still around today, but in canon, in this timeline, they've both been withdrawn. Tylerwear and Hugo tell Sprinty they're gonna go to the National Railway Museum up at York, so they can find a new home. They asked him to come too, but Sprinty wasn't withdrawn yet. So they say their goodbyes and they headed off to York. At the National Railway Museum, they are found by the Fat Controller, who is looking to buy some new engines for the railway, like he has done a million times by this point. After Thomas makes a cameo and tries to take away the screen time like he always does in the Hit and Nitrogen episodes, Tylerwear and Hugo arrive on the island of Sodor, and Tylerwear reunites with Braxton, who is now in a red paint job. This is the exact same model as large-scale Braxton, but it was painted red instead of the Sunland District Berries livery. This model is still being filmed for Season 3 to this day. And for some reason, Sprinty was sold on as well. I don't really know why Sprinty was sold on, considering he said earlier in the episode he was not withdrawn, which his basis is still around as well. I'm assuming they probably brought him over so that he didn't have to be alone. And the episode finishes with a really magical and dreamy-esque line from the narrator.
And that is how Tylerwear and his friends found a new home.
Even though they retconned the big escape, Tylerwear and Hugo just are allowed to go anyway, because the mean controller is just mean. So I don't see it as like a huge flaw. Overall, this was a good episode. Although it's a bit strange how Sprinty just randomly just shows up at the end. And yes, in the credits, the episode was written by me. Although Pokestuff did change it how I was originally intending it. But hey, at least it was still executed somewhat okay. I'm giving it a 6.9 out of 10. So, Season 1. Decent start, and it definitely seemed like a different show and not some Thomas ripoff. Another reason I call it a non-Thomas ripoff is because Thomas and his friends do appear in it. In the next season, mostly. So how was Season 1? It was a decent start to the show. But Season 2? Let's take a look. Season 2 was officially released on the 14th of February 2025. It picks up from where we left off with Tylerwear, Hugo, Braxton and Sprinty on Sodor. Many more Thomas and Friends characters were introduced into the show at this point, such as Thomas, Frankie, Mavis, Gordon, Diesel, Splatter and Dodge, a handful of troublesome trucks, and Lady, who only appears in a cameo. Even though certain episodes were becoming more cartoony, I personally think this season is sort of a step up. Let's see if the first episode, Tylerwear and Mavis, does anything for us. The episode takes place shortly after the events of the previous episode. Thomas, making his official debut in the series, is giving Tylerwear a tour around the island. When they get to Farquhar Quarry, Tylerwear meets Mavis for the first time and quickly develops a crush on her. After a little conversation with Thomas and Braxton, Tylerwear tries to get his feelings for Mavis. And by the end of the episode, they are in a romantic relationship and end up kissing, with Braxton and Sprinty watching in the process. This was quite a decent episode, although I'm going to be a little bit honest, I don't really think my Mavis voice isn't exactly good. But it's the best I can do, so can't really blame me for that. At least it's not Steve Hyman's Norman Price. One interesting piece of trivia about this episode, it is established completely out of nowhere that Sprinty is the best friend of Hugo. In my opinion, that seems a little bit forced, but it's a nice piece of trivia. Something else interesting about this episode is the way Pokestuff voices the Fat Controller. For this one episode, he gives him his Michelangelis accent.
Thomas, I need you to take Tylerwear on a tour around Sodor so he can learn how to be really useful.
Whilst it's nice, I personally prefer his CGI styled one, but it is still really good. The reason Tylerwear has a crush on Mavis is pretty simple. Mavis is Pokestuff's favourite character, and as I stated earlier, Pokestuff is basically Tylerwear. That's the way he wrote the character. It's basically Pokestuff as a Thomas character. So this is personally a little interesting detail that I personally think actually works. Also, this one line from Thomas is supposed to be a reference to the season 22 episode Rosie as Red. Well, I actually had a similar story with Rosie back then. But then I explained it to Rosie, and that's how we were together. Thomas X Rosie shippers, anyone? Something else I'd like to point out, this is the first episode to be fully in 16:9 without any of the camera shots being chopped down into 4:3 or anything like that. So I'm glad the aspect ratio has finally become consistent, and it looks a lot better visual wise than season 1. Also, it is in a glorious 1080p. High definition. This episode was honestly decent, and it's a good way to start Series 2. 7 out of 10. Episode 2, Tylerwear and the Express Engine. The episode begins with Tylerwear leaving the quarry, where he sleeps with Mavis, obviously, to go to the docks to enter service with Hugo. And it's here where they meet Gordon the Big Engine for the first time. Why Gordon is here and not at Knapford Station where his express train starts, I don't know. Later that day, Gordon gets stuck on the line because of a cow. Once again. I wonder if Edward found out about this too. So the Metrocar twins come to save the day and they take Gordon's passengers for him. However, this quickly becomes tiresome for them. So Braxton and Sprinty offer to help. Unfortunately, Braxton's engine is still not healthy. So the Fog Controller, now in his CGI series design, doesn't try to scrap Braxton like the main controller did, but instead offers to buy Braxton a brand new engine. So everybody is happy again. And Tylerwear heads back to the quarry for a long rest. Wow, this episode is definitely looking better so far. I really like the fact we got to learn where Tylerwear sleeps. I don't know where Hugo sleeps though. It's a bit strange how one Metrocar sleeps at the quarry with Mavis. So could this mean that Hugo sleeps at, I don't know, Brendan? Wellsworth? We don't know. Also, there's another Dave Diesel's line.
And they both felt quite dizzy.
Aye, look at Tylerwear's face! The continuity with Braxton having a battered engine, that makes sense, because he was only just rescued from the scrapyard by the end of last season. Of course his engine would still be broken. Also, for the next couple of appearances of her in the show, Mavis would be voiced by Punky Stuff's older sister.
Evening, Tylerwear. How was your day?
And Geordie accent aside, she does a lot better than me. Honestly, I'd say it's one of the better voice casts for the series. I'd say better for Mavis, that is. And of course, I could not conclude talking about this episode without the magnificent Misty Island Rescue-esque end credits scene with Diesel, Splatter and Dodge, and Scoop. Turning Diesel into the main antagonist was a brilliant idea. Even Punky Stuff thought it was a good idea. So much so, every season there's going to be a main villain. For next season, it's going to be Diesel 10 by the teaser trailer. So expect to see a villain for every season. This was a brilliant end credit scene. This episode is way better than the previous episode. We've got so many more dynamics, and Braxton's engine's still faulty. I'm glad that gets paid off. 10 out of 10. Episode 3, Tylerwear and the Trucks. Tylerwear is tasked with pulling trucks today instead of his passenger work. Unfortunately, he gets to the tricky crossing, the same one that Mavis got stuck in Season 3 of Thomas and Friends. Unfortunately, the trucks hold Tylerwear back, causing him to be stuck in the middle of the line. So Mavis had to come along and take Tylerwear back to the quarry and deliver the trucks herself. Mavis goes off to give the trucks a punishment, leaving Tylerwear to have an evil statement to himself, resulting in Braxton breaking the fourth wall. Whoa! Tylerwear, calm down. You're getting a little bit too crazy right now, buddy. We've got viewers watching, you know.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry viewers, I apologize that.
This is actually quite an interesting episode for Tylerwear, because Tylerwear has never pulled any rolling stock before. He even states that his kind was built for pulling passengers, which is true. But it's nice to see Tylerwear doing a different job besides doing his regular passenger train. Let's hope Hugo doesn't have too much work to do. Also, there's this one gag where Braxton just folds up a sign. Okay, that was actually funny. Despite this, it's not really my cup of tea, but it is still an interesting watch. 6.5 out of 10. Episode 4, New Visitors. Mr. Smith's engines are visiting the Northwestern Railway for a short time to help out with the work. Boris and Johan encounter Tylerwear and Hugo. However, due to the events of the most recent Boris and Friends episode, The Silence of the Engines, Johan is still angry about what Owain had told him about being replaced by the Metro system, so he decides to go up to Tylerwear and attack him, which results in a really cool fight scene. Oh, but that's not the only problem they have to worry about. Owain, Barry and Lindsay have also came over from Wales, and they're planning to team up with Scoop and Diesel to take down Tylerwear. This episode is so short that I don't really have to describe much about it. I really like the fight scene. I mean, it makes sense for Johan to act like this. Because Boris and Friends got cancelled after 4 episodes, we never had to properly see how this would have acted. But if the Silence of the Engines Part 2 had came out, we probably would have seen how this had really happened. But honestly, I really like that Johan is gonna go through a character arc where he learns to appreciate the Metro system. And besides, this is his first appearance so far, so he really will be angry for the first couple of appearances. Also, these are the same Boris and Johan models used in my Boris remakes. Every single one of my Boris customs was sent over to Punky Stuff's house for filming. This included engines, rolling stock, and road vehicles. Even though all of the props didn't appear, quite a handful of them did, and you'll notice that the models have had slightly different appearances to them. Boris's model in particular has received a slight repaint. As you can see, the tanks on him are slightly brighter. It's been like this since filming of Boris Alex in the snow. Also, during the flashback, Punky Stuff reuses the Boris and Friends remake of The Silence of the Engines Part 1, making this the first instance of lip-syncing animation in the series, something which will come into play much later on as the series continued. This episode is fantastic, and it started a little sort of rivalry that will continue to go on for the next couple episodes. 10 out of 10 as well. Episode 5, Johan's Story. The episode begins with Tylerwear angrily shunting trucks in the yard. Braxton, Boris, and Betsy, who was unfortunately named Lucy throughout the episode, but this is a script error, came over to speak to Tylerwear. Boris tells Tylerwear why Johan is prejudiced of Metrocars, because of the Metro system things that was told to him by Owain. Tylerwear begins to feel sorry about Johan because of his backstory. Betsy and Boris leave Tylerwear and Braxton alone. Braxton decides to challenge Tylerwear to a race. Thomas and Bertie, anyone? Only to not realise that Splatter and Dodge are spying on them. In terms of Boris characters, this is the first episode to feature Ronald and Betsy. This is the first episode of the show to have original lip syncing and not being used in a Boris flashback. This is the earliest example of Punky Stuff using lip syncing animation. While it is a little bit rough at the beginning and is very anime-esque, it does look really decent in my opinion. However, unfortunately, it's only for the Boris and Friends characters, which it does kind of make sense for them because in their show, they did have lip syncing for the animation. Eventually, all the characters would get eye movement and lip syncing as the animation and the series went on. Something else to change about the animation is that the characters' eyes now have a slight sparkle within them. Also, Braxton was actually moving his unrealistic hand there, which is also a nice touch. This episode is honestly really good as well. 8 out of 10. Episode 6, Worries and Guilty. Now knowing what Johan's backstory was like, Tylerwear tries to explain to him that he feels bad for him, but Johan, still worried about because of what Owain had told him, doesn't want to speak to him, thinking that he's going to, do something bad. Look at him, he's just chuffing away without his train. Thomas tries to reason with Johan, telling him that Tylerwear doesn't mean any harm, but only to get the same angry response. Thomas heads back to Tylerwear and tells him that he really isn't going to change, and he tried his best to try and let him know what was going on. Then Thomas puffed away to get Annie and Clarabelle. Braxton was thinking about what to do. He had to cheer his best friend up somehow. But while they weren't looking, the familiar figure of Scoop the Seasider emerges from the corner, plotting an evil scheme. And in the post-credits scene, Scoop and Diesel kidnap Tylerwear and Braxton and send them to the scrapyard. So what can I take away from this episode? Well, for a start, I really like this shot of Boris. It's nice to see that he's brought his two coaches with him. I can't believe how angry Johan got in the scene. Now, I just want to point this out, but Johan doesn't care about Tylerwear so much, he tries to get away from him by abandoning his goods train. Also, I'm glad to see that Lucy's model was brought out, considering the script error mistake from last time. Also, I would just like to point out, Scoop is now being written under his Scoop the Seasider Gets Grounded personality. The personality for Scoop that was created by AJAV. Tylerwear does appear in that show, but we will be getting onto that right at the very end of this video. Also, by this point, the second half of the season, Scoop now has a new model. Scoop's new model has a smiling expression, and he is missing his headlights. What was this episode like overall? Well, it was nice to see Tylerwear understanding what was going on with Johan and trying to make everything better, but I don't think it was as good. It was still good enough, but I don't think it was as good as the other ones focusing on Johan. But this episode is still getting a high rating, 6 out of 10. Episode 7, Sacrifice. Sonny and Rocky, two of the other Seasiders, came to the scrapyards to try and rescue Tylerwear and Braxton from Diesel and Scoop. But it's gonna take more than just two open-top buses to save the day. So Tylerwear calls Hugo and tells him to come and rescue them. When Mavis, Hugo and Sprinty arrive at the scrapyards, Scoop and Diesel threaten to kill Tylerwear's friends. And so Tylerwear has to sacrifice himself to save the others. This is a decent introduction for Sonny and Rocky. The reason that they exist is because in Scoop the Seasider Gets Grounded, aka Scoop's personality by this point, Scoop has become a troublemaker, and these are the two that usually give him the grounding. They're basically the parental figures to Scoop. In terms of their bases, Sonny is based on the Enviro 400 Hybrid, and Rocky is based on his ALX 400 design. But as you can clearly see by that middle section in the bottom of Sonny's window, Sonny's actually an ALX 400. This isn't Punky Stuff's fault. This is because in Scoop the Seasider Gets Grounded, he's also an ALX 400, but he has the exact same livery as the Enviro 400 Hybrid for some reason. Also, I'd just like to point out, Hugo's ringtone is the Angry Grandpa Show. This was probably Punky Stuff's idea. He really likes the Angry Grandpa Show. I'd also like to point out that from this episode onwards, I went back to voicing Mavis. Oh no, my sweetheart! This is because at some point behind the scenes, Punky Stuff and his sister weren't really getting along, and so as a result, I was called back to voice Mavis, which I still do to this day. I still think it's a little downgrade, but at least it's something. Oh, and the cliffhanger at the end was actually quite decent in my opinion. There isn't too much to say about this episode, like quite a lot of other ones, but it's still getting a high rating, in the form of 7.1 out of 10. Episode 8, Chat. After getting a glimpse of the aftermath of what happened in the previous short, Johan came up with the breakdown train to get Tylerwear back on the rails. Note, Johan has got a sad expression on his face. He feels bad for what he had done to Tylerwear and how he treated him, because of Orwine's words. Now, Johan realises that Tylerwear is really useful and he doesn't want to take over from the Steamies, and so he apologises. Soon, Tylerwear is put back onto the tracks, and he calls Braxton to tell him the good news. And the episode ends with Tylerwear heading back to find the others. I think it's time to address the red elephant in the room. I love the fact that Johan has finally gotten over his resentment towards Tylerwear. I am so glad that this finally happened, putting this small kind of rivalry to bed. That dialogue sequence with Tylerwear on the phone was honestly quite long, but at the same time, it does feel charming. It's a shame I haven't really got much to exactly say about this episode. Other than, there's one line where Braxton mentions that Tylerwear is Mavis's boyfriend, definitely confirming it to be a romantic relationship. And apart from that, everything seems to be okay. Although, I don't get why Diesel just got left on his side, but honestly I think he deserved it. Even though this episode is very quick and there's not really much going on, it's still really charming. 8 out of 10. Episode 9, Success! Tylerwear finds the others. They're spying on Scoop, Owen, Lindsay and Barry, who are planning to kidnap the Fat Controller. However, the Fat Controller was already aboard Braxton, so he quickly gets out and does his usual confusion and delay shtick that we've seen a million times. So what happened? Well, the Fat Controller sends Scoop packing, because he was never invited anyway, and he also tells Owen and his gang to go away as well. I wonder if Mr. Smith has anything to say to them when they get back to Wales. And so, Tylerwear, Hugo, Braxton and Sprinty head back to work. Sonny and Rocky have mysteriously disappeared though. They've probably gone off to ground Scoop. There isn't anything I can say about this episode because it's extremely quick. But one thing I can take away from it is, Scoop does not live at South Gosford Depot, which is actually really nice. The Fat Controller even confirms it in the episode. Even though the episode is very quick, it is still really nice, although it does seem a bit lazy, like this will be the execution to get rid of these guys, but it's still quite decent enough. 6 out of 10. And finally, episode 10, the end. Everybody is gathered at the docks to say goodbye to Boris and his friends, who are going back to Mr. Smith's railway in Wales. Including Edgar, who hasn't really appeared in an episode before now. Once everybody leaves Brandon Docks, Tylerwear proposes to Mavis. This will be a lot more important later since the most recent episode is about that. And the episode ends with Tylerwear and Mavis kissing, with Cranky unfortunately there to see everything. I'm happy we got to see a farewell episode to the Boris and Friends characters before they got sent back to my place. I'm honestly a little bit puzzled of why Edgar never appeared before, but it's nice to see he was used, and Gordon's reaction about it is just priceless. And of course, Thomas did have to laugh about that. That is in character for him, 100%. And then the episode, it gets crazy. When I first discovered that this was becoming a proposal, I honestly couldn't believe it because it was really, really insane. But yet again, this isn't an official Thomas and Friends series, so I can make an obsession. But I remember the first time Punky Stuff told me about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, why? And having the song Born to Run in the end credits, that was actually quite fitting, and it's a really catchy song, not gonna lie. While the episode is short, it's really, really good. 8 out of 10. And that was season 2. Oh my gosh, this season was beautiful. For so many reasons. More Thomas and Friends characters getting time in the spotlight, Johan having an arc about the metro system, and this season's villains going after Tylerwear. Also, Diesel has had a really kind of troubled history with Tylerwear in the past, which is confirmed in the shorts. Speaking of the shorts, we might as well talk about other Tylerwear the Metrocar projects. Let's get on to that segment now. Sometime after the release of the first episode of Series 2, a new mini-series that was made to go alongside Series 2 was made, that being the Tylerwear the Metrocar shorts. These will be attached to the very specific ending of certain Season 2 episodes, basically giving us a payoff towards the end of whatever episode was out at the time. This doesn't apply to all of them, but it applies to most of them. Some of these shorts only last under a minute, so it's going to be really hard to basically review them in the exact same style as I have with the seasons. So basically, I'm going to rank each of them, starting with the first, quickly going over it, and telling you my opinion. The first short, Valentine's Day, takes place after the first episode of Series 2. It's basically Tylerwear and Mavis having some private time, with a really nice kiss sequence. Oh boy, that's gonna take a while to get used to. You got that right, Braxton. You got that right. That piece with the Happy Ever After music was spectacular. Really good short. But I wouldn't say it's one of the best. 6 out of 10. In Braxton's new engine, Braxton finally gets a brand new engine fitted inside him. I personally think this short is better than the previous one, for a couple of reasons. Number 1, Punky Stuff's sister reprises her role as Mavis following the previous episode. Number 2, finally, Braxton gets something good for once, instead of just being treated like absolute rubbish. So it's nice to see his little, his little engine problem finally pay off. And number 3, this is the first Tylerwear short to have the narrator. This is much better than the previous one. 9 out of 10. The truck's his punishment, we'll see Mavis cause a huge accident, basically. The crash scene was amazing. Even Charlie was put into the crash, despite him not appearing in the episode. Maybe that was for fan service. One piece of trivia about this short, this is the only Tylerwear production to only feature Thomas and Friends characters. It's strange, but I love it. 10 out of 10. The next short, Diesel's Plan, came out after the events of Johan's story. It sees Diesel, Scoob, Splatter and Dodge and Owine basically having a Magic Railroad-esque conversation. It's basically the Diesel 10 and Splodge scene in front of that mountain, but with Diesel 10 being replaced by Devious Diesel. This is just basically a Magic Railroad parody, no offense Pokey Stuff, but at the same time it's still pretty good. I'm just gonna give it a 5.6 out of 10. In Danger, we get to see Braxton and Tylerwear in the scrapyard after being captured by Scoob and Devious Diesel. You guys already know what the best scene in the episode is. I'm gonna play it again for the sake of it. Scoob, you little!
You're not going anywhere, you antiques.
You're never gonna win it, you know, past! Angry Braxton all the way. Something interesting about this short, this confirms that Diesel has worked with Tylerwear in the past. This isn't canon to the Railway series, so it's okay for us to expand our own lore, but in this canon, Diesel, when he was sent packing, and when he was not working on Solo, he worked over in Newcastle area. In this timeline, it would have been like the 80s or 90s, which doesn't make sense, but it's not canon to the official Thomas project, so it technically is okay. The sad music in the end credits, that just adds the suspension of the short. Overall, this short, it actually has a dark theming to it, and honestly, it's all carried out by that angry Braxton scream. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Now we get to the shortest short, Tylerwear Snaps. Basically, in this, Diesel is about to kill Tylerwear, but before he can, he gets whacked right in the face. Wow. Oh my god, and Diesel's scream when he gets hit, that is honestly really, really good. Just like the third short, this has also really got a nice crash. Easily one of the best crashes in the series. This is going straight up to a 10 out of 10. Aye, aye, aye. This is brilliant as hell. Then in the aftermath, Splatter and Dodge come across Diesel, who still hasn't been rescued, just lying there, dazed and dozed. Splatter and Dodge just discuss a little bit of dialogue, and honestly don't even care if he's just lying there. Really not much to say about this short. I'm just gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Ideas doesn't feel like a proper episode. It's basically Tylerwear and Braxton discussing ideas for Series 3. And also talking about Big World Big Adventures in the process. I've seriously got nothing on this one, because it's so simple and short, I don't really know how to rate it. For now, I'll just give it a 5 out of 10, because there really isn't much to it. Most of the same things can be said about Goodbye, but in this one, Tylerwear is talking to Punky Stuff himself. He even mentions the Boris and Friends models were owned by me. This is basically a fourth wall break short. Unlike the previous short, this is a lot better because we get to see Punky Stuff himself, and obviously I get mentioned, so there's that. I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10. Now I know, you guys are thinking, well, what about short number 6? What happens in short number 6? Well, we'll get onto that when we talk about another show later on. Just after a month after the shorts ended, we got our first Tylerwear the Metrocar special. The specials were basically similar to the shorts. They had their own unique stories about certain characters, as well as some flashbacks, and they kind of messed up with some elements of the timeline. The first of these specials to be produced was The Last Metrocar, which focuses on 4001. By this point, other Metrocars had been mentioned / introduced. We had the Class 555s, and we had 4054 referenced in a previous Season 1 episode. In the special, 4001, voiced by me, is not very happy with the mean controller. But honestly, I don't blame him. Who would want to be happy with a mean controller? Because the Class 555s are starting to have issues, which is basically ruining his plans to take over. Just at that moment, a Class 555 Metrocar comes in and its doors open on the wrong side. 4001 points out the failure, causing the mean controller to be a little bit cautious about his decision to scrap the older fleet. That should bloody show him. A workman informs 4001 that he's going to get preserved at Stevenson's Railway in North Tyneside. He's really happy to be here. When he arrives, he meets a Class 08 shunter. Just a generic Class 08 though. And he shows 4001 where the sidings are. The special concludes with a really nice message to Tylerwear and Hugo from 4001, showing us their older brother misses them.
Well, Tylerwear and Hugo, I hope you've made it to a new home. I'll never forget you.
It's time to discuss this special. This is the first of the Tylerwear the Metrocar specials, and the first time we see Punky Stuff's intro, his original intro, the one that was the Constantine film version. I'm a little bit concerned about the mean controller because this particular scene actually surprised me, because he notices the Class 555s are failing, like, kinda miserably, and they do have their flaws, as we are currently speaking. Don't get me wrong, they are good trains, but they've started to get wet roofs and the door fault. Currently that's been fixed, but that was an inspiration taken from real life, so I'm kinda glad that was put in there. Honestly, I'm glad the mean controller actually realised the problem here. 4001's model is basically the Tylerwear / Hugo model. Whilst I'm not really that keen on it, it is a lot more better than what we'll see later on. By the way, I'm recording this after September 5th, because this got a bit delayed, so you'll see why in a minute. I don't think it's a huge flaw. I think he still suits it. His basis hasn't worn this livery since 2020, but still. The Class 08 model here is based on a real-life Class 08 shunter. It's got the British Rail logo on the side. This model is currently within Buses with Harvey's collection, alongside Sprinty. This is a fantastic start to the Tylerwear specials. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. The next special is how Tylerwear and Braxton met. This is a special that takes place all the way back in 2015. The first time Braxton and Sprinty met was when Braxton was trundling down the road and he comes across Tylerwear for the first time. He's seen Metrocars before, but he had never interacted with one. That's personally my own lore personally, but still. The two ask each other what their names were, to which Braxton says his number is 8335, which is extra evident via his livery. He got the name Braxton from his best friend Tylerwear, obviously, and it's the same for Tylerwear. The reason Tylerwear got his name is because his driver is called Tyler, as confirmed by Braxton. What about Tylerwear? It's your driver's name and it's your kind's name mixed together. And yes, what he means by that is his driver is called Tyler and Tylerwear. What do you get? Tylerwear. Basic hybrid. Something about the show is Tylerwear is in his late 2010s livery. Now this is something I've only just found out while researching, But 4067 was actually painted in this livery in 2017. I'm actually quite surprised it was that late, to be honest. I feel a little bit silly about that, but hey, Punky Stuff put it in as 2015, but I can see why, because Braxton was repainted in 2015. But, I guess it doesn't really matter. You could just put yourself under the mindset that it takes place, like, between 2017 and 2021. But honestly, I don't think it's that major of a change. But it's still a little jarring. I mean, I've only just found this out. But still, yeah, I'm just gonna go under the mindset that it takes place after Tylerwear's repaint. I'm honestly shocked that Braxton hasn't even met Tylerwear when he was in Orbit, because that was Braxton's original livery from 2011 to 2015. Still, this is actually a really nice created short. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And the final special, well, the most recent special, is How to Let Your Anger Out. As Tylerwear comes along the line, Diesel pushes a brake van straight into him for no reason. Mavis and Toby see the whole incident, and Tylerwear is pretty enraged by it, so he heads to Timber's sheds to let his anger out, and does one of the greatest screams I've ever seen him done. It's Angry Braxton, but with Tylerwear. This is the first Tylerwear video to have the Universal Sun at the beginning. This is supposed to take place after Season 3, because Tylerwear has got a different livery. This is his Northwestern Railway livery that he'll get at the end of Series 3. This is also Toby's first appearance in the series, and Punky Stuff does a really good voice for him. Now let's get onto the new Tylerwear model. I made it out of a Tommy Harvey's coach. I sanded everything off and painted it red and a little bit of yellow at the front. I hand drew the face, and all the window and light details on him, including his display board. I did the exact same for Hugo, but I painted him blue. This is a really decent short, although it's very short. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Another thing to come out during this time was a Family Guy intro parody. Take a listen, it's really good.
It seems today that all you see is violence in movies and trains on TV. But where are those good old-fashioned values on which we still rely? Lucky there's Tylerwear. Lucky there's a new positivity can do. What a thing to make us laugh and cry. He's a Metrocar.
I'm not going to put this in a ranking space because I have no reason to do so. Despite the vocals being all over the place, and Hugo not even singing, it's still really good. Something else interesting we got around this time was the Tylerwear comics. Well, so far there's only been one comic, but some of the chapters in the comic were dubbed on YouTube. The chapters that were specifically dubbed were Tylerwear vs. Wobbly Woos, Tylerwear Saves Mavis, and The Fight. It features the characters in humanoid designs. The most notable three that appear are Tylerwear, Braxton, and Mavis. However, Diesel and Scoop end up teaming up again. Also, Diesel's name is misspelled. To be honest, I don't really have much to say about the Wobbly Woos, but I really like their designs. They kinda remind me of Iggle Piggle from In the Night Garden for some reason. I really like the design of Tylerwear, Mavis, and Braxton in the comics. They look really nice. Mavis has the most unique design compared to Tylerwear and Braxton, not only because she's a Thomas character, but you know. Whilst it's not my favourite, I do like the fact it looks different compared to the others. Tylerwear and Braxton have the exact same design, but the only difference is Braxton wears headphones and Tylerwear wears glasses. Also, at the very end, we get to see a Tylerwear Metro Class 994 in the 90s design, as well as this Go North East bus. Now you might be thinking, that's a simplistic looking Versa, considering Braxton is also in this, but it's not a Versa. I had a conversation with Punky Stuff about it, and it's supposed to be a streetlight. In my opinion, it doesn't look like a streetlight. It doesn't look like a streetlight in my opinion. It looks like a Versa or an Optes Tempo, but still, I still like the design, although it doesn't look like a streetlight. September 12th, 2024 would mark the first time Tylerwear would appear in a video outside of Punky Stuff. He appeared in The Adventures of the Seasiders, which was created by Buses with Harvey. Sprinty is set to appear in the series as well, using his Tylerwear Season 1 model. In Scoop and Hattie's big race, Scoop ends up having a race with Hattie, the oldest member of the Seasiders. Tylerwear is a Class 555 in this episode for some reason, and he doesn't seem to have a face. However, he is still voiced by Punky Stuff.
Hello?
The Class 555 model used for Tylerwear looked like this. This is an official Class 555 printout from Nexus. It was released in 2023, I think. I got mine in 2023. This was also used as the Punky Stuff Tylerwear the Metrocar Class 555 that appeared in Season 1 and the last Metrocar. As you can see, mine has got the minis conversion, and it's honestly the best minis conversion I've done. This end here is in very bad condition, but oh well. If we take a look underneath, you can only just see the wheels. Honestly, I think this was the best minis conversion to do. Oh, and there's Thomas's front coupling. Yeah, if you're looking for a Tylerwear Metro to do a minis conversion onto Trackmaster rails, do the Class 555 because the scaling is lovely. Compared to other engines in the Tomy and Trackmaster range, they look really, really nice together. I'm using my Playrail Shocked All Legends Go Taurus because I can, and also because I can't be bothered to find an actual classic engine. Honestly, just look at the scale compared to the Tomy All Legends Go Taurus. Good thing I gave this model the front coupling, now I can do this shot! Also, fun fact, in Tylerwear's plan, Tylerwear actually mentions the events of the Adventures of the Seasiders.
You know what, Scoop? You are nothing but a little jerk, you know that? You have been a big jerk ever since I've met Hattie. I'm not having another argument with you.
Other Tylerwear Metro models have appeared post this episode, but this is the only one to actually feature Tylerwear himself. Even though this Class 555 model would be reused again, as well as some Class 994 models. Tylerwear and Braxton appeared in the Trackmaster/Tomy Battle Steam Engines vs Diesel Engines video by Punky Stuff. This isn't an official Tylerwear project or anything, and Punky Stuff voices everybody in this, which is actually quite interesting to be honest. Like, I know he's done it before in the past, but still. This is the first time Braxton was not voiced by me. This is the first time where he's voiced by Punky Stuff, and the only time he was voiced by Punky Stuff so far. And also, I think it's a really good voice that he does for Braxton. Also, when they're trying to turn the camera off at the end, Braxton mentions my channel, which is a good thing, because he's supposed to be me.
Alright, so, how do you turn this camera off, Braxton? Yeah, I think I've done it a lot of times here. I've done it. I'm sure it worked. Well, yeah, you know, I'll do it. I've done a lot of videos as well. And well, my channel's more like it was since 2017. But no, oh my goodness, oh my god, oh my, no, I can't even turn.
Another small Punky Stuff appearance was in Sprinty is Possessed. It's a short gag that has Sprinty getting possessed after talking to Timothy. Punky Stuff thought this was a good video, so he's thinking about making it into an episode at some point. I don't think it's going to be for Series 3, however, because Series 4 and 5 have just started pre-production. They should be coming out by the late 2020s. In a Jingle All The Way parody titled Nobody Likes You, Charlie, we actually get to see the very first instance of Red Braxton. He shows up at the end spanking Charlie with Sam and Tylerwear. The funny thing is, this came out on the 8th of December 2024. A month or so before Red Braxton's official release. The most popular appearance of Tylerwear and Braxton came in the Family Guy Who Wants Chowder parody that was uploaded earlier in 2025. This is Punky Stuff's most popular video and the most popular appearance of Tylerwear and Red Braxton. Sometime after it was uploaded, I ended up asking him if we could redub this with the voice cast, which is basically just me and him, and he instantly said yes. It was also around this time we started getting AI-generated songs based around the show, with the first one being Tylerwear the Metro Train. Eventually, I decided to take these songs and make them into music videos. Each of the songs produced for the series, including all the ones produced by Punky Stuff and Sprinty and Friends by AJAV, used stock footage from the show as well as unique animated segments and uniquely filmed shots, most of them being of Season 1 Braxton. The only music video that wasn't animated by me was the second version of Tylerwear the Metro Train, which is basically the show's theme song. That was done by Punky Stuff. Also, at the very end of that music video, you'll notice that there's this image that appears. This is a little drawing I did of Tylerwear, Hugo, Braxton, and Sprinty in their original liveries. I sent it to Punky Stuff later on that day and he loved it so much, he decided to put it in the video. Also, this is on my YouTube community post if you want to check it out. Some of the characters have appeared in various episodes of Scoop the Seasider Gets Grounded, which explains why Scoop became a villain in Series 2. Tylerwear appears frequently, as does Braxton, Sprinty, and Mavis. There are other Thomas and Friends characters who appear in this, but I don't really think I need to talk about them. Percy is evil in the series for some reason. He's one of the bad guys, which just confuses me. Tylerwear's original Scoop model looked like this. This model was completely hand-drawn, from the face, to the windows, to the doors, the headlights, even the bogies are on this model. This does resemble the later Tylerwear because of how he's only got 2 doors on the sides, which honestly, that's a nice attention to detail. The second model used in the show for him looked like this. This is obviously the trailer design, but with a unique face, drawn by AJAV himself. The same thing happened with Braxton and Sprinty. Their models were originally hand-drawn, but then they were also upgraded a little bit later on to have actual cutouts of their bases. The video from AJAV, which I think is the most strange, is the video how Tylerwear and Hugo were born. These are the parents of the Metrocars apparently. 90-23 and 90-17. I'm not 100% sure what bases that they are, but by looking at them, they might be an electric engine. Also, how can Shelley be the nurse? The Metrocars are older than her, definitely. Oh, it doesn't matter. Realism's gone out of the window anyway. Besides, this was Punky Stuff's idea, no offense. And no offense to AJAV either. On the positive side, the new models for Tylerwear and Hugo are basically small-scale versions of their current Season 1 to Season 3 models. Speaking of characters getting grounded, we also have to cover Devious Diesel Gets Grounded by Punky Stuff. Tylerwear appears in Episode 5, alongside Mavis, obviously, and Braxton and Sprinty appear in Episode 8. Episode 8 was filmed in 1080p, high definition obviously, but unfortunately, it was uploaded in 360p, so this is probably going to be a rare chance for it to be uploaded like this. This is one of the first instances of Tylerwear characters exclusively having lip-syncing. Thomas characters appear in it as well, most notably Thomas and Diesel, but I'd just like to point that out, this is the first time Braxton and Sprinty have lip-syncing. And in Punky Stuff's version of Peppa Pig Gets Grounded, Braxton and Sprinty end up appearing in one episode, in which Peppa drives Braxton and nearly crashes into Tylerwear. But Daddy Pig ends up finding out eventually and decides to ground Peppa. Tylerwear and Hugo make a cameo in Punky Stuff's remake of the turntable scene in Tenders and Turntables. Not much to say other than this is Hugo's first appearance in his Season 3 livery. When Punky Stuff reached 1,000 subscribers, Tylerwear hosted the video to go around celebrating the fact that Punky Stuff had reached 1,000 subscribers. Braxton, Sprinty and Hugo appear in this video too. As you could see, Hugo's new model has white on him for some reason. The reason is because the paint I was using was actually quite cheap, and at the time when I was making him, I had no idea. Tylerwear's paint was cheap too, but at least that one was actually stronger. Okay, we're getting closer to the end of the video. And now it's time to cover one of the biggest moments so far recently, Season 3. The trailer for the season dropped a couple of weeks before the season actually premiered, which I actually like, because considering what happened with Series 2, it was really quick. There's one little noticeable thing in the credits. it mentions me, and Buses with Harvey, and Bus Boys Transport Channel in the credits, and then Buses and Rail 2025 Official. The reason he's in the credits is because he was originally going to join in the voice cast. He was going to be voicing a brand new Metrocar character by the name of Cherry. Here is Cherry's only, design so far. It's his horn sound effect video. Like Tylerwear and Hugo, Cherry is a Class 994, specifically 4060 because that is Buses and Metro's 2025 official's favourite. Punky Stuff accidentally did 4061, but that was probably an editing mistake. He is not going to appear in Series 3 now, he's a cancelled character, well for now. The reason is because Buses with Harvey and Buses and Metro's 2025 official and Punky Stuff were having a little disagreement behind the scenes. That's the best way to put it for now, at least. And so, Buses and Rail 2025 official, he was axed from the series. But because he doesn't want anyone else to use his character because he doesn't like being replaced, he's asked if we could have a name change and a fleet number change. I spoke about this with Punky Stuff and we're both still thinking about it, so don't you worry. If he ever joins the cast again, Cherry will be in the season at the time. I say at the time because, he's currently not in the cast, but still. Now it's time for the episode. One thing I do like about the new season is that it has an intro. This intro was animated by me for Punky Stuff. It features the second version of Tylerwear the Metro train in a high quality this time instead of just being uploaded from another device. And it features Tylerwear and Hugo in their new liveries, which they will get by the end of the season. Just wanted to confirm that right now, because Diesel 10 is coming into this season, and there's going to be a big arc revolving him. Anyways, onto the episode itself, The Wedding. It takes place straight after the events of the previous season. Tylerwear and Mavis are finally getting married, as it was established at by the previous episode. Mavis is wearing a dress, well it's supposed to be a dress, it's like a little skirt thing or something around the cow catchers and side plates. Tylerwear is wearing a bow tie. And for some reason they decided to make Thomas as the groom. I'm perfectly okay with that. And at the end of the episode they end up kissing once again. Now that we've looked at this episode, let's talk about things that I like about it. Firstly, I like the fact that all the characters moving forward have lip syncing on them. And it's nice to see some engines interact with these characters that they didn't in the previous, such as James and even Henry. The designs of Tylerwear's bow tie and Mavis's dress came from George Roberts' little concept art before the episode. I don't really like the fact that the animation looks a slightly more cheaper in terms of the faces. The eyes don't look that great. I think the eyes were slightly downgraded. In fact, the animation looks a little more different. I do not like the new eye designs on these characters. I get what Punky Stuff was trying to do, but honestly, I don't think in terms of this episode it wasn't good. No offense, Punky Stuff. But at least it's only a flaw for this episode. But I do like the fact the eyes have animation to them too, though. In terms of Tylerwear's tie and Mavis's dress, I made them myself for Punky Stuff. The dress was made out of paper and the tie was made out of pipe cleaner. And they were both attached by blue tack. This episode was a decent way to start Season 3 in terms of continuity, although it's not really one of my favourites. I'm just going to give it a 5 out of 10. But we're not done yet, because we've got an episode of Season 1 remade to celebrate the anniversary. On 6th of September 2025, we got a remake of Sprinty's Accident, featuring the large-scale models. The story is basically the same as the original, but the narrator says a lot more detail in terms of the characters' personalities, which I like. But this has got one major flaw, and that is Braxton and Sprinty. Braxton and Sprinty are in their previous liveries. Braxton is in Key-Link and Sprinty is in Green Arrow. This is the first time we see Green Arrow Sprinty being used for the show. I really hate the fact that Braxton and Sprinty are in these liveries because they're supposed to be in Super Shuttle and Sunderland District berries. The narrator even says this in this remake. Is there anything that I do like about the episode? Well, the eye animation is a lot better than how it is in Series 3, which I actually appreciate. Although they can still be a little bit wonky from time to time, they are definitely a lot better than here than they are in Series 3 so far. One thing interesting about this episode is that in this remake, Braxton and Sprinty are in the wrong liveries, but they actually went ahead to correct Tylerwear and put him in the correct livery. It's basically, I find it funny because in the original, Braxton and Sprinty were in their proper liveries, but Tylerwear was in 4001's livery. And the remake seems to have swapped everything round. It's a good remake, but I prefer the original. The original had better designs of the characters, but this had a better story. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 as well. So that's it, guys. That was Tylerwear. A member of the Tylerwear Metro brought over to Sodor. This was quite an interesting retrospective to make because this series isn't that popular. It only gets like a couple hundred views. Although this was a fun retrospective and I did enjoy looking at Tylerwear and his friends. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this retrospective for being my first retrospective. I hope you enjoyed it too, punky stuff. So, I'm gonna get going and I'll see you later. Bye!